All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
It's Election Day in America. Welcome. I know you've already voted. My crew has voted. You're mail-in, drop-off people. But there are a bunch of people who like to vote in person. You know, I used to like to vote in person. Let me tell you why. I used to live where Kamala Harris lives now, in a place called Brentwood. Okay. Not Brentwood from Northern California, it's Brentwood in Southern California. You know where OJ used to live, right? Now, there are different parts of Brentwood. They're like super wealthy parts. That's where, like, for example, OJ lived, and probably where Kamala lives. But anyway, so there I'd vote in person, and here's why. You'd vote at this place called the Lux Hotel. That's the voting place. It's a hotel. And you'd pull up, and there was valet parking when you pulled up to vote.
What?
I'm telling you, you drop your car with the valet, you go inside, and then there's a catered meal. There was Chinese food one year. There were deli sandwiches, finger sandwiches the next year. This is before you even go in to vote. And then there it is. There was a cellist one year playing while people waited. Also, a pianist one year. Okay, all of this at the voting place. I would feel horrible as I looked at the rest of the country. People are waiting online for, 2.5, 3, 4, 5 hours sometimes in some of these states, Georgia, Texas, these states that have become so famous for voter suppression. They make you wait longer and longer. It's a way to shake out voters. I mean, that is voter suppression. So anyway, I would vote in person all the time just to see this sick scene that was going on. And everything about it was super civilized. I remember one year I had to wait like 20 minutes online.
Did they bring you a cocktail?
And I thought, really, this is outrageous. I have to wait 20 minutes? It was... yeah. So what can I say? I hope everybody had that. It's no longer like that. I drop off my vote and we dropped off our ballots some days ago. But I do in a way miss the in-person voting. Of course, I miss all of that stuff that I mentioned, but also there is a quality of citizenship and responsibility associated with it, which I really do like. So anyway, I hope everybody has voted and, you've exercised your right. I will tell you that these are more pictures of the hotel.
It's fancy. That's fancy.
It is.
Right there. Mm-hmm.
It was pretty crazy.
I've never seen anything like it.
You could have...
Meanwhile, people are standing in the line, out in lines in the rain, and Mark's
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. I felt horrible.
Cocktail lounge for a little cocky poo after the.
I have to tell you, even as I'm obligated to be completely honest and unvarnished. I have to tell you though that I relate the entire thing with some reluctance because it is just so decadent. But that is the way they vote there in Brentwood, California. I don't know if they're still doing that, but it was pretty terrific, and it was definitely incentivizing to get out and vote.
Absolutely.
So, Sally is first into the super chat. She, the winner of Mark's Madness. She says, in the words of the great Jim Avila, there's always been in this country 30 to 35% idiots.
There's always been in this country 30 to 35% idiots.
30 to 35% idiots we can actually take because I think that would not be sufficient for the GOP and Trump to win the election. Over that number, I think it could be an issue. But I have a special treat for you. I'll quickly, before I give you our special treat, I want to acknowledge Janet R., also one of our OGs, has been with the show since the beginning. She sends us a $20 super chat, and she says, my daughter and I are voting in person this afternoon. My daughter wanted to vote in person for her first time voting, but we did fill out our ballots last night to take with us because when we fight, we win.
That's right, Janet.
Right on, Janet. Mm-hmm. And congratulations for doing the right thing and for being on the right side of so many issues, new issues and old issues. I feel like that is something I want to talk to David Cay Johnston about. So we have a special treat. David Cay Johnston is typically in the second hour of our show. He kicks off the second hour of Tuesdays. But today,
The Mark Thompson Show.
You can imagine the Pulitzer Prize winner David Cay Johnston is in great demand. He comes to us from a remote location as he, again, has, he's right now has a lot of demands on his time. So we have him for a very short time, and we've moved him earlier in the show to accommodate his schedule. He is the Pulitzer Prize winner. He is a multi-best-selling author, professor now at RIT after he's co-founded DCReport.org. When it comes to Trump, though, particularly, he is without peer. His books on Trump will just pull back the curtain on this man who may ascend to the presidency for a second time. He's with us now, David Cay Johnston, everybody.
Hello, Mark.
Hello, David.
Thank you very much
so much for.
Thank you for letting me come on an hour early. Maybe tell the 3 o'clock people. I know some of them check in to see me, and I'm sorry. I'm doing all sorts of overseas television. You're the only American. The rest of the things I'm doing almost 24 hours a day for today and tomorrow are overseas.
Well, we'll drop this as a separate video. And of course, as you know, your videos on our channel get hundreds of thousands of views from all over the world. So I will start with something that I was going to mention anyway. And you can just, we can brush it off, or you can tell me, just give me a thought on these computer simulations. Nate Silver ran this, and he's the elevated now to some sort of a pretty high profile statistician. Nate Silver published his final silver bulletin just after midnight, and he says that 80,000 simulations of the election bring him right in line with all the polling we've seen. Harris won just over 50% of the time. Trump won just under 50% of the time, and the simulations found an exact electoral college tie to 270. And I want to ask you whether these computer simulations factor in anything that we should pay attention to. Like, where do these technologies that have now been developed the way they have apply to us?
Well, the pollsters have been adjusting their models because they got things not as smartly as one would expect in the past 2 elections. And one of the questions raised by some of the pollsters is, did they overcorrect? That is Trump coming off better than it appears? And I think there are a number of signs that, assuming turnout continues today at the levels we've seen this morning, that is, we don't see the kind of disaster that happened when in 1980 Jimmy Carter conceded before they closed the polls in Hawaii. And so people just, who were in line, some of them just walked off.
Sure.
So assuming that doesn't happen, Harris will win the popular vote and win by a big margin, more than 10 million votes, maybe 15 million. But that doesn't mean she wins the Electoral College. And there's so few people in the polls who are that good at doing polling when you get down to state levels that I wouldn't put a lot of credence in any of this. There is a very respected pollster in Iowa. She says that Harris will win Iowa, which we think of as a very red state for many decades, by a substantial margin. And
this is the Ann Seltzer poll that we talked about yesterday.
This is the Ann Seltzer poll. That's exactly right. And so I think that how many women turn out to vote is going to be the crucial issue in what happens here today. But my expectation is that Kamala Harris will be the next president of the United States, and that the Republicans will do everything they can to not allow votes to be counted, to throw out votes, to disenfranchise people. Terry Schwadron, who was a former number 2 editor of the LA Times and a senior editor after that at the New York Times, has a very good piece at DC Report explaining here's what's going to happen in terms of litigation, and here's what to watch for. And I would encourage people who want to understand what's going to happen over the next few days to read this piece. But this is going to be a story of lawyers starting at about dawn tomorrow.
Wow. I mean, this is so fascinating to see one party so clearly designed now in their desire to win, planning strategies to overturn a result. It is almost as though, and that is their plan, then they lay it in early, right? Even Trump's claims of fraud that he has floated as early as 2 months ago really set the tone for what the plan is, which is to cheat the system, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, there are two outcomes in this election in Donald Trump's mind. He wins or it was rigged. And he has reiterated in the past few days, I won all 50 states in 2020, not anywhere near true. And Donald has done exactly what I said on your show months ago would happen, that as we got to the last few weeks of the campaign, he would get crazier and crazier. And that's exactly what we've seen, to the point where some of his own people are talking to journalists, not for attribution, but talking to journalists on the campaign trail and saying, we keep telling him you got to stay on message, and we're not being successful at doing that.
I wonder, in that spirit, Tony, can you just run for David? These are very short clips, but this is Trump on the last day. And he's particularly, he's so nasty. And I want to talk to you in a broader sense about the nasty and how that's kind of been the coin of the realm now. But I want to get to play, David, a clip from, this is Trump from yesterday.
Countries weren't accepting him back until I came. With Barack Hussein Obama, I call him the Great Divider. He's the Great Divider. And he hit, and Michelle hit me. I was so nice to her. Out of respect, I was saying, she hit me the other day. I was going to say to my people, am I allowed to hit her now? They said, take it easy, sir. Sir, take it easy. My geniuses, I'm telling you, they said, just take it easy. Oh, what do you mean? She said bad about me. I can't hit back. Sir, you're winning. Just relax. Is that good advice? Is that good or bad advice? I think it's neutral. You know what the response is there? It's like, nah. What do the ladies from North Carolina think about? Hit back or just relax? Huh? Oh, they say hit back. You say hit back. I'd actually love to hit back, but we'll hold it a little while. We'll hold it. I'd love to hit back, but. Oh, no,
now play him, if you would, this quickly, the Pelosi. This was actually, that was tame compared to what he said about Pelosi. Go ahead.
She's a crooked person. She's a bad person. Evil. She's an evil, sick, crazy. Oh, no. It starts with a B, but I won't say it. I want to say it.
Yeah, I to speak to this, David, I think there's a quality of this trolling that his followers and maybe a lot of the country enjoys.
Oh, I think that Donald Trump has degraded American politics in a way that the framers of our Constitution actually worried about. The reason that it's so difficult to make change in our Constitution is that the framers, they're not the founders who signed the Declaration of Independence. It's only about a 20% overlap. They were very worried that a mob essentially could be worked up to do things that would undo our democracy. And they were all very well educated about ancient Athenian democracy 2,500 years ago, where people were split up, where the leadership changed 10 times a year. They had a year with 10 months in it. And each community had to have people from different clans, all to avoid having some sort of mob rule takeover. And Donald has reached out to people who feel, in many cases, economically disenfranchised, understandably, as well as people who hate the civil rights and feminist and gender rights movements, and who call themselves Christians but believe in hatred because they don't understand what's in the documents that the scriptures they claim that they follow. And he's really aroused their passions and done a great job of it. I've been surprised that I had an exchange with a high school classmate of mine on the internet the other day. He is a honorable police officer his entire career. and he is in favor of Trump and believes that Trump was needed to save our country. And it's like, I'm sorry, this is a man who sent a mob, 140 police officers injured, who now says I should never have left the White House, which is what I had predicted would happen long before he became president. In 2015, I said, if he gets to the White House, he will not leave peacefully. And what we're seeing is people who believe, or Trump has gotten them to believe, that the Biden administration is destroying our democracy. And what could be further from the truth than that? And when Donald says things like, she's a lunatic, he's talking about himself. Everything Donald does like this, it's important to understand, is he projects onto other people as a way to avoid his own condition. And I think it's very sad that even the Jim Acosta number of a third of Americans, I would have put it at a quarter, but would wrap themselves up in this. And there are always people who will believe crazy things. A psychiatrist once said to me, and I don't think it was an original comment, everybody believes something that everybody else knows is crazy, as a little joke. And what we're seeing here is what Bandy Lee, the Yale psychiatric medicine professor who was fired for saying that Trump is mentally ill, has said all the way along, that mental illness can spread from a leader to the followers. And that is literally what we are seeing here. We are seeing mass mental illness among people who are diehard Trump fans. They have embraced his mental illnesses. And
because they've David, just to be clear about that,
Yeah.
because they've accepted this narrative, the completely
That's
fictitious
correct.
narrative of the immigrants voting by the millions, illegals, et cetera.
Right. Crime is up when crime is down. The economy is in recession. We have the strongest economy in the world, as the Economist magazine, the most sober publication on the planet, says. Wages are down. No, wages are up. Claiming, that eggs are costing 4 times what they cost 4 years ago. No, they're not. They're costing inflation adjusted just about the same, until we had this avian flu that required killing over 100 million laying hens. Guess what? You got to kill 100 million laying hens because they're diseased. Egg prices are going to go up. There's nothing to do with the administration.
What about what's happening at the polling places, David Cay Johnston? I mean, there are a lot of poll watchers, but the vibe, if I can use the word, at the polling place is anything but what it used to be. I mean, it's now become sort of a target zone.
Well, we have not seen, I looked on the news reports just before I came on, so far any acts of violence against people standing in line, and be very grateful for that. The systems we're using everywhere, especially in the big cities where there's been controversy, are incredibly transparent. They always have been, but they're more so now, so that people can see what goes on in counting the votes. And remember, it would be almost impossible to rig the entire election for a simple reason. We don't have a national voting system run by the federal government. We don't even have one run by the 50 states. It's federal law, state law, and then it's local elections boards, some of which are appointed, some of which are elected. They are bipartisan. And there's no possible way to rig the election. You could rig a precinct. That's about it. And by the way, my wife and I, one of my 8 children and 2 of my 5 grandsons, we all voted at the home of Susan B. Anthony, who on this day in 1872 cast a vote for president with the connivance of 3 young men here in Rochester, New York. Well, I'm in D.C. at the moment, but in Rochester, New York. And we're all prosecuted for it. And I think it's a great ironic statement and about how America has changed, that women not only have the right to vote, but on the screen you've got Susan B. Anthony's house. It's a museum. And lots of people went to vote there and stood in line, many of them for an hour or more, so they could say they voted at Susan B. Anthony's home.
Well, the one thing I take from that also is that David Cay Johnston's family is a voting bloc unto themselves, and it's quite a lot of people.
I think at least one of my children has voted for Trump.
Oh yeah, well
but I have 8 children, so
one strays. If just one strays, you're actually doing pretty well. David, we promised you we'd get you out of here on time, so I'm going to let you go. Thank you for all the contributions to the show all year, and I hope we have good news in the next couple of days. And I know that you may join us for a few minutes tonight for our election special.
I expect I'll be able to join you this evening. And thank you. And if you haven't voted, folks, get out and vote. And if you have, call friends of yours to see if they voted and offer to drive them down to the polling place. Because it really matters that people vote. This is, we always say, this is the most important election. No, it's not. And I've never been part of that crowd. But in this case, we're choosing, are we going to continue to be a free people in a democracy? Or are we going to live under a man who declares openly he will be our dictator? He will turn the military on Americans he doesn't like. He will prosecute people who say things he doesn't like. He will be a tyrant.
And he's surrounded by loyalists who will now be installed in a way they weren't the first time.
Absolutely.
David, thank you. See you tonight. David Cay Johnston, everybody.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
It is Election Day in the United States of America. There has been quite a robust early voting crew, and those who have mailed in as well. But obviously, the vote and determination as to who will be the next president, and a lot of down ballot issues as well. There's senators and House seats open, as well as a lot of propositions. Abortion is on the ballot in some key states. As I told you, when Dobbs was the decision that we had to live with and was getting all the attention, I mentioned at the time and have mentioned it repeatedly that if we can get abortion on the ballot in key states in America, and as many as possible, to coincide with the presidential election, I think that refocuses people on the importance of the Supreme Court and the danger of these Supreme Court appointments. I mean, I don't know that women need that reminder, but maybe some others do. Anyway, Ray M. Hill, look at you. Ray M. Hill, Mark, Kim, Tony, and Albert, thanks so much for helping us keep our sanity. Your show is better than ever. A big shout out, $100 he throws into the show, and $99.99. Mm-hmm. That is a thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ray M. Hill. I'm not going to cry on election day.
I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry.
But that's a lot of money, and that really helps us.
I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry.
I'm going to need a second. Hula Steph says, here's
this with love from Stephen Grady.
Thank you very much. I can't see it very well.
Big shout out.
Big shout out to Stephen Grady. Hula Steph with a $20 super chat. Thank you. Yeah, we're a crowd-funded show, so thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I love it when the crowd actually funds. Peter Newton says, we will know tonight who shall be president, and by night, I mean before dawn light breaks through Maine yonder window. Thank you for the super chat. I don't know if we will know tonight. I suppose if there is a dominant or a dominance in the early voting. Here's what I will tell you, is that my darling Tony who hates it when I call him my darling.
Thanks, Tony.
I can quit.
He really doesn't like it. It's wild. Is that yeah.
What's up?
We should see somebody about that. We should maybe get into some counseling on that. But anyway, Tony does have information on what precincts and what states may report early. And Tony, throw that Kornacki thing up there. I thought he did a nice job with this. And this will give you a sense, if you're just wondering, what states at what time. Here you go.
It is 7 o'clock Eastern. That is when the action is going to start. The first core battleground state, Georgia. Polls closed there, and I think this is key to keep in mind. If we think back to 2020, remember the weekend after the election, we were still waiting on a result in Georgia. It may be very different this time around. There's been a change in the state law, a change in the process, and what it essentially means is that in that first hour, between 7 and 8 p.m., we expect, if all goes to plan, about 80% of all the votes cast in Georgia will be counted and known publicly in that first hour. The only thing that'll be left after that that would come in over the next couple hours would be the people going out to Georgia, cast polls in Georgia today and casting votes in person today. The vast majority was done early, and that will be reported out in the first hour. A major, major clue could come early. 7:30, you just heard North Carolina polls closed then. Also expected to be a fairly quick counting state. The possibility, unless it's razor thin, which is also possible, of getting a little bit of clarity in these states early is very real tonight. 8 o'clock, you see a Michigan poll close with a star. Almost all of Michigan closes at 8. You'll see results. You will not get a call in Michigan guaranteed between 8 and 9 because at 9 o'clock, there are 4 counties in the fringes of the UP that close their polls. Then the whole state closes, and then we'll see where we are. But of course, we expect it to be longer than that in Michigan. Anyway, Pennsylvania, the big one, 8 o'clock. Polls are going to close there. Key thing to keep in mind, what's going to happen almost entirely in the state is they have a ton of vote by mail. Not as much as before, but a ton of it. All of it, or just about all of it, is going to be released first by the counties in Pennsylvania. So that means the Democrats, because they do so well with vote by mail, you can expect that in the 8 to 9 o'clock window or so, you're going to see the best numbers Democrats put up in Pennsylvania then. And the question is going to become, as the election day vote, the people going out to vote today, a more Republican group, as that gets added to the mix in Pennsylvania later in the night, what kind of a hole is Donald Trump in, and can he come out of that hole with the election day vote? We expect that sequence in Pennsylvania. It says 9 o'clock for Arizona. OK, 9 o'clock Eastern, the polls close. Also, the state law, they must wait an hour after that. So 10 p.m. Eastern. And by the way, when it comes out in Arizona at 10 p.m., you're going to get about 2/3 of all the vote in the state at 10 p.m. It could be slower after that, but we will get a lot. Wisconsin, 9 o'clock. There could be a big development. Milwaukee usually reports out the rest of its vote in the wee morning hours. We're talking about like 100,000 votes we could be waiting on. Keep that in mind. Nevada, 10 p.m. But in Nevada, sometimes it could take a couple hours after that to even get some votes reported out. So bottom line, we have the potential this time around to have more clarity more quickly in this election than 2020, but the possibility we could be waiting in a state like Nevada, waiting in a state like Arizona for days looms as well.
All right, thank you. That gives you a sense. Yeah, those are Eastern times. I mean, I think that was made clear a little bit later, but yeah, early on, I know I just saw a couple of people, are these Eastern times? Yeah, so all those times that you saw on the Eastern states, that's Eastern time. And then when they got to the West, it was a weird thing because those are Western times. And he did note it, it's 10 o'clock in the East, 7 o'clock, for example, in Nevada. So this makes you think we'll have a sense of things maybe tonight, but not a sense of things enough to know what the outcome will actually be. And of course, the cry of fraud, the louder it gets from Trump and from the right, the more encouraged I would think we should be, because, I mean, at least for me, my bias is against Trump. And so I view the more he screams about that to reflect the more information he has from internal polling that he may have access to, that he's in real trouble. So I do think that women will be a big part of this. And I'm glad of that, because I think women are being brutally handled by the GOP plans already in place in the case of the Supreme Court, but even poised to get worse if you actually look at Project 2025 on women's issues and women's reproductive freedoms. This is just the beginning. It's hard to believe that this is just the beginning, but it is. So when you talk about the prosecution of women and the prosecution of those helping women to get abortions when they have to cross state lines, when you look at the abortion pill, that it's sent through the mail, there are ways to actually use existing law to prevent that. So there's a multi-stepped process by which what's happened to women could get even worse. So I'll just mention, since you're, Kim, you're the woman on the show, I yield to
on
you.
the topic of women, I have a mom friend who is canvassing in Nevada, and she said she drove from Petaluma to Nevada to campaign for Kamala Harris, and she said that it was kind of a mixed bag. She was at one point that there was a Trumper that called her the devil, but there was also, she said, a 70-year-old woman who chanted, "We aren't going back," to her as we were walking away from her house. She said that really gave her hope. She also said that there was a couple that was from New York that came to Reno to canvass. They were in their late 60s. They'd been visiting their daughter and granddaughter in Marin, and they came to Reno to protect their rights as their grandmothers did. They were elderly, she said, they were in hostile territory, and that it was inspiring, and they were there to protect reproductive rights. And then I was talking to another mom who said that her mother told her something really interesting. We were talking about how older women who remember the time before Roe v. Wade were motivated to come out in big numbers, and maybe that accounted for some of the seniors and the early voting. And she said, my mom told me that tonight. She said Trump triggered a lot of women her age and reminded them of being girls in the 50s and 60s who were told what to do, who were told how to look, and lots of them are voting to take a stand.
Yeah, those are really powerful, powerful remarks and reflections on all the gains made by the Roe decision, and gains that were held in place for so long, and now the way these gains have slipped away.
It's really highlighted by Megyn Kelly, because she said something at a Trump rally last night, and this is the woman who Trump said she's bleeding from the wherever, right? So she's been on the receiving end of his misogyny. And Megyn Kelly stands up at a Trump rally and basically tells women who, sorry, it's true. A lot of women put their life on hold because for family, right? There are a lot of sacrifices made willingly and gladly. But at a time when women need to stand up and go, you know what? No, we need to take this one for ourselves. Sorry, guys. Megyn Kelly stands up and tells us to take a back seat again.
We have that video, don't we, Tony? This is Megyn Kelly speaking at the Trump rally yesterday. Go ahead.
He will look out for our boys, too. Our forgotten boys and our forgotten men. Guys like you.
This is a big thing to her, this cultural wedge issue, men and boys. Go ahead. I was just
these guys
the applause.
Who've got the calluses on their hands, who work for a living with the beards and the tats, who maybe have a beer after work and don't want to be judged by people like Oprah and Beyonce, who will never have to face the consequences of her disastrous economic policies.
Okay, stop for a second. I do want to say something about this. There is a subtext here which is really powerful and which is part of the divisiveness and the baked-in partisanship that is America today. And Trump plays on it, and she's just played on it. The idea that the macho, right, the bearded, tatted guys, I mean, she's calluses on their hands, that those people somehow are left out of a democratic plan for the economy, for the culture, for whatever it might be. Of course, that's not true. In fact, the opposite is true. The actual economic policies of a Trump favor his rich donor class friends, and the economy will suffer for those to whom she's referred. But it feels as though working class versus elite class is something that they can exploit, and they do quite effectively. I mean, here she is with a billionaire on stage, a guy who's never worked a day in his life. He was born on third base, thinks he's hit a triple, and all he's done is invested in stuff, been a playboy, tried to screw everybody who he comes in touch with, screw them from a business standpoint if he's doing business with them, screw them in the bedroom if they're a woman, and she's making the argument that he's better for the working class. It's utterly absurd. There is nothing in his economic policies or in his background and history that would suggest that's true. Get back to what she's saying. I'm sorry.
He gets it. President Trump gets it. He will not look at our boys like they're second-class citizens. And ladies out there who want a bit of girl power in this election, let me tell you something. How can you win when the sons and the husbands and the brothers and the dads you love are losing? It's not a win. We care, young women and older, about the lives of our children, the safety of our children.
That's it.
And we need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How can you win at the expense of men? Okay, women, take a back seat again. Close your mouth, sit down, and get what you've always gotten, and don't stand up for yourself. That's Megyn Kelly, who somehow has swallowed a load of misogyny as if it's true, and she's ready to take a back seat again and sacrifice her rights to her own body again. Outrageous.
There is a remarkable thing that's happened. Well, first of all, somebody like Megyn Kelly and a lot of these world of punditry figures, I'm thinking of Jesse Waters and Judge Jeanine Pirro and this rogues gallery of people who show up on Fox News Channel, they have found a vein of gold in this Trump world and in this alt-right GOP and in these cultural wedge issues. So she can exploit them, I think, for a lot of personal gain. Now, you may say, hey, she's got the courage of her convictions. Maybe she does on some level. I don't know how much is, from a percentage standpoint, stuff she believes and how much is stuff she doesn't. But no one can objectively look at America and the Dobbs decision, rollback of Roe, and in any way with a straight face, tell me that women are better off. They need their reproductive freedoms. They need the privacy of decision-making between their doctors and themselves. It is utterly absurd, and I don't see how a woman, a high-profile woman, can make the argument that she just made. Here is Oprah on the stump for Kamala Harris. We played you a lot of Trump stuff. This is, again, just yesterday on the last day before Election Day. This is Oprah Winfrey on the stump for Harris.
We are voting to defend and protect the Constitution of the United States. We are voting for values. We are voting for values and integrity. We are voting for the right to choose what happens to our own bodies. We are voting to save ourselves from this precipice of danger where we now stand. All the anxiety and the fear you're feeling that because you sense the danger, and you change that with your vote. We are voting for healing over hate. Now, I believe in this promise of America. America has been the greatest country in the world for me. I believe that if you and I and the voters you see on this stage show up for our country tomorrow, if we answer that call that President Kennedy made more than 6 decades ago, then we have the power to choose a leader who will see us. She sees us, and she will do her mighty best to serve all of us. I believe we can do that, and I know she can do that. Yes, she can.
So she is really terrific, of course. She's a great orator, and she sends a good message. I'll tell you honestly, as I always do on some of these things, and I get a little blowback, but I don't know that the message about the Constitution and democracy is really cutting. I mean, it's true, okay? I mean, it absolutely is true that democracy is at stake, and the Constitution and respect for the Constitution, flawed as it is. I don't think the Constitution is a perfect document whatsoever. But and one of the virtues of the Constitution, of course, is the fact that it can be what? It can be
amended.
Exactly. And unless you're in the process of working with this living document as an amendable document, you're really not respecting the Constitution. It wasn't written like the Ten Commandments on tablets handed down, never to be touched and always respected. And we could talk about the Ten Commandments another time. That's just an example. But I think it, sadly, while it's really at stake, the future of this country is really at stake. I don't know that part of the argument catches. I do think that the rest of her stuff is super powerful and does catch. And when you talk about women's reproductive freedoms again and women being seen, I love that she said that because, you know, I feel as though the patriarchy since the beginning of time has ruled the world. I mean, if you look at every religion on earth, it's all patriarchal. It's started by dudes, and it's set up so the men have all the power. You can give me any religion on earth and show me where that's not true. And so that's a political setup, right? It's set up. Maybe it was inspired by God or whatever. I'm not putting it down, but I'm telling you that all the political systems on earth, going all the way back to religion, which is a political system, right? You've got a hierarchy. It all works that way. It is set up for women to respond to the whims and decision-making of men. And so we get to America, where we were forged in so many great ways by these heroic guys. They did something very difficult, but the system was forged for women to take the traditional, at that point, role, which is way, way down the hierarchy from where the men are, the decision makers. And what you have in that legacy is something that we're constantly having to swim upstream against. And now we have a party in power in the GOP. They are in power in many places. I get it. They're not in the presidency right now, but they may reascend. They certainly could have control of other branches of government, and they have control of perhaps the most important branch of government, which is the Supreme Court. And they believe quite fervently that that legacy of the patriarchy, of men in charge, of women really taking a second-class citizenship, no control over their own reproductive freedoms. Are you kidding me? They want that in place in a bigger way. And I believe that's only the beginning. I mean, this isn't a party that's, the GOP, that's bothered by the fact that women make less money. This isn't a party that's at all bothered by the fact that women have had to deal with sexual harassment in the workplace, in the military, etc. for so long. I understand the lefties can be crazy. The lefties can turn everything into a battle over race, gender, gender reassignment, trans issues. I get it. You can go too far that other way as well. Not everything falls into those categories, but certainly you can see the fascistic tendencies of the GOP when it comes to controlling at least one gender. And I think it extends to other minorities in the society. My God, they're literally censoring books that just mention gay characters. Are you kidding me? I mean, this is a regressive kind of thinking. We are stepping back. I really grew up, you know, in this many of us did, boomers, in this time where the civil rights movement was exploding. America's cities were on fire. It was a dangerous, scary time because there were real civil rights issues, and that wave was cresting. And I grew up with this sense that we got to get past this. We've got to be more inclusive. The country's future has to be one of inclusion. And so that was the America that I thought we were actually making some progress. I mean, it was a horrible, bloody progress, you know, and people were killed and assassinated, Martin Luther King and RFK Jr.'s dad, and more, right? The Black Panther Party, and and look, parts of this, all of it that was roiling America's cities and communities continues on some level. But I guess what I'm trying to say is we were evolving to a better place, a more inclusive place. Now I worry that we're devolving to a far more partisan, bigoted, terrible place, a darker place, and the future of America really is on the line. So, Oh, well, thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Megyn Kelly, Tumbleweed says in a super chat, thank you for that, is a perfect example of the transference of mental illness from the cult leader. How she can support him after how utterly awful he was to her.
Right.
History will not be kind to her. This is the point that Kim was making too, Tumbleweed. Yeah. It's
I'm just
anyway.
moved by the difference in message. You know, the message, take a back seat and keep your mouth closed as always, versus we see you.
Right.
Right. We see you, we hear you, we'll fight for you. Totally different messages. And I don't know how you come away with anything but yes to Harris. But I've been confused this whole time how this, I read last night that this election is on the knife's edge. And you look at the polling and it's split down the middle, and how half of this country could fall for that. I don't understand it. I'll never understand it.
There's a quality of smack talk that Trump has that a lot of people are really attracted to. He reps strength that way. I don't care about my advisors telling me not to say this. I'm going to say it anyway. I don't care about political correctness. I don't care about the facts. I mean, he's done something. I'll make this point. I'll put this point to the side, the facts point, because I want to make a point about that in a moment. But he's done something with his smack talking, which is he's identified others, and it's just sort of happened organically, who have grievances, right? We talked about this the first time when he became president. They have grievances, and, you know, this guy talks smack to the establishment, and I feel like the establishment's got me down too. And the system is broken. Hey, I agree the system is broken. There are parts of the system that have to be changed. That's why I was just saying the Constitution has to be amended. These are absolutely undeniable facts. But that doesn't mean that everything from the system is bad. This is the secret ingredient in this Trump rise, is to somehow exploit what is a general notion about government not working and turn it into a crusade. Government's not working for you in any way. We're going to go in and we're just going to tear the whole place out, right? We're going to get rid of the administrative state. We're going to get rid of all those people who are working in those government buildings. They're gone. The EPA, we're going to close it down. This is exactly the wrong thing to do. You can modify these organizations. Some of them need modification, some of them don't. I mean, the EPA needs a re-strengthening. The Supreme Court, with the Chevron decision, has already essentially undermined a lot of these regulatory agencies like the EPA. They essentially said in that decision, hey, that government office of the EPA doesn't really have a constitutional right to restrict toxic dumping. If you want to restrict toxic dumping, you, the legislature, have to restrict it. Well, the legislature doesn't have any scientists in it. It doesn't have any experts in it. So the scientists and experts associated with the EPA, the CDC, again, not perfect organizations, but at least they're built to try to handle some of the challenges of American society. Anyway, the idea somehow that you could turn all of America against government is one that Trump's had some success with, at least in turning a big part of America against government. So the other thing he's done is he's allowed lying on a level I've never seen before. I understand that politicians shaded facts. Politicians took information and amplified it, played it down, even perverted it for their own political aims. It's happened since politics began, but it's never happened on the level we are now seeing. I'm not just talking about Trump. I'm talking about everybody. Everyone, particularly in the GOP, feels they can. Of course, it started with this big lie, right, that the election was stolen. They can just put that out there and everybody gets it. They sing from the same hymnal the big lie. But then they go on to any number of other lies, and it doesn't matter how big your lie is, because in the new America under Trump, you can get away with a lot more than you ever could before. The press isn't even there really to call you out on it anymore. The nature of the press has changed so immensely that this lying has now become something in politics I've just literally never seen at this level. Stan Pollock says Congress can assign an agency the authority to write a law through regulations. It is interpretation that the court stopped. Stan Pollock, CPA, our favorite CPA. Let me just read this again because I have to understand what he's saying. He's saying, Mark, Congress can assign an agency the authority to write a law through regulations. It is interpretation that the court stopped. I would say this to you, Stan. Congress did assign an agency the authority to write a law through regulations. The agency's called the APA in my example, or it's called the Consumer Regulatory or the Consumer Protection Agency. Whatever it's called, the Consumer, that's not the name of it either. Yeah, it's Consumer Protection. Yeah, but it's, that's what I said, but it's, anyway. The point is, there are agencies set up to write various laws through these regulations. So I don't understand.
Environmental Protection Agency is a good example.
I use the EPA because I think it's an easy one to understand, but it also extends to consumer protections as well. So when you say Congress can assign an agency the authority to write a law through regulation, I'd say to you, they've already done it. It's already in place. I don't get it. What do you mean? So you want, the other thing I would say to you, and this is why I really was alarmed by the Chevron decision, because essentially it's throwing work to Congress that they just don't do. I mean, Congress just isn't doing the work anymore of passing legislation, assigning responsibility. I mean, show me where they've done it before. So this from Vilma, who says in a super chat, we must make it a requirement that candidates cannot be eligible to run for the presidency if you are a felon. Well, it is a weird thing that we can vote. We cannot vote for president if we're people with felonies on our record, but we can be president. I mean, that is a weird, again, welcome to America. Please have a seat. Trump may say a lot of fluff, but Kamala can't even answer one question about Prop 36. What a fraud she is. That's who you're voting for. Good day, sir, says Edward Lee. Well, I'll tell you honestly, Edward Lee. I'm sorry, go ahead, Kim.
She didn't endorse any proposition in California. She on purpose did that. She didn't say one way or the other how she was voting on any of the propositions.
I would say that this about, in general, Kamala Harris, who I know Edward Lee's not a fan of. And Edward Lee, for those who don't know, is just somebody who is in our chat. But we have a kind of a community of regular people here, and you are welcome to be one of those regular people. Please join us in after chatting, after hours chatting. You can go in and leave comments, after hours commenting. I call it after hours trading. Or you can do it when we're live. So he's just hitting us live now. I would say this honestly about Kamala Harris, and I have never said this on the show before. I'm voting for her. I'd vote for her 30 times if I could. But this election to me is not about Kamala Harris. It's about Donald Trump and the specter of Donald Trump and his acolytes and those who surround him ascending to power and having the executive power along with the Supreme Court, which essentially turns that executive power into unbridled executive power. There is no check on anything he wants to do. So for me, Edward Lee, it's not about Kamala Harris, whether or not she came in on Prop 36, didn't answer this question. Gosh, I don't like the way she laughs. I wish she was more charismatic. I don't think she really answers much very well anyway. Sometimes it's a word salad. I don't know. I just don't like, I don't care. I don't care. And she's the beneficiary. I mean, to be honest, this is the part I've never said before, but she's the beneficiary in my house of Trump being so bad. I mean, I don't think Kamala Harris is some great, magnificent candidate. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I never, ever, when they had all those, back when we had primaries for the 2020 election, I never said, oh gosh, Kamala Harris, can't wait to jump into that car to take me to the promised land. But to be fair to Kamala Harris, there are very few people where you really say, yeah, that person, I want to jump in their car. I'd say Barack Obama is maybe one of those people. He was massively charismatic and is massively charismatic. He's a great orator. He's brilliant. He's considered in his responses to questions. I just don't think you find that package in many people. There are two parts of this process of becoming president. There's the presidenting part, where you're actually running an administration. This is what Joe Biden is doing. And there's the candidate part. And the candidate part, for example, Joe Biden, he ain't that great a candidate, right? He's gotten old. He can't, whatever his problem is, all right? We just wish he would go, chill. But it also applies to Kamala Harris. There's the administrating part. It's who she'll surround herself with. It's what her administration is going to be about. And then it's representing those things on the stump. So all of these things go into the decision making. But to me, this is the easiest decision you could ever be faced with. The GOP is just so very dangerous right now. Hey, I'm not saying they'll always be that way. GOPers, go take over your party again. I mean, if Trump does lose, I hope you'll reconstitute this party, at least having some moorings to facts and to problems. I mean, this just in, millions of illegals are not voting. It's an absolute lie. It started with Donald Trump, and it is unsupported by any piece of evidence. As I have said to you on the show over and over, explain to me how anyone who is in this country illegally would want anything to do with some official process that brings them in touch with cops, lawyers, and government. They don't want anything to do with it. They're not going to show up on election day. They're not going to fill out a fake ballot. They're not going to put an address or a name. They're not. They're in the country illegally. They're making money. They're trying to send it home to wherever. I'm not saying that we should have open borders. This has nothing to do with immigration. This has to do with the lie that somehow these illegal immigrants are throwing elections. It's an utter fantasy, but it's not even a good fantasy. Think it through. What would be their motivation? Anyway, this is the party that I hope you guys in the GOP can take over, and you can cleanse that party of that kind of crap, because it's just BS. Hey, if you want to win on some BS issue about trans rights, because like all of a sudden everybody's thinking about trans, that's everybody's thing. I mean, how many situations in your day involve trans people? Still, that's the hill you want to die on? Some BS about trans people? My God, isn't it hard enough to be a trans person? I mean, I can't. So I don't know. But my point is, that's a cultural wedge issue. That's the kind of crap that is typically amplified in a political campaign. But to make up this thing about illegal immigrants and all the other lies that are told, it's just an absolute horrifying change in that political party. And I would hope that you in the GOP will go in and help be the future. Maybe there's some younger GOPers, conservative people who are listening or watching. Go in and make that party legit. Make it about policy. Don't make it about lies. Hey, tatted working class bros, good luck spending $100,000 on your Lord and Savior's crappy watches and other junk. Just stop complaining about the economy. Yeah, well, that's from Luis. I mean, I will say this. What would it be like if Barack Obama were out there hawking sneakers and watches and his new Bible? I mean, would that ever happen? My friends, you know I'm a God-fearing man, and the new Barack Obama Bible is here, and I've put the Declaration of Independence in the front. I mean, are you kidding? It's an SNL sketch. If he was hawking sneakers at rallies, are you kidding me? I mean, this is the one thing Trump has is no shame. Unbelievable. So I don't know what this country has evolved to, but I do know that this is an inflection moment in this country's evolution. And this is a very important election. Groucho Marx said, if women want to be equal to men, Trevor says, that's fine with me, but I don't understand why they would give up being superior. Trevor Starr in Hollywood, thank you for that. Machete held a poll, but Fox calls
people of color
Utes savages. Is that right? What was the...
I didn't see that. Gosh,
I didn't
that's
either.
awful.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Contendo follows a lot of stuff that some of which I don't know. Harry Magnan says, let's start a new religion, Thompsonism. Yes, there you go. All right. We can meet at the Red Jack Saloon Tabernacle. There you go. Yeah, that would be, there it is, the Red Jack in San Francisco. Right on. All right, have faith, my friends. Kamala will win, says the uprights. So... there's that.
Big shout out.
Big shout out to the uprights for the $10 super chat. Here's another $10 super chat. I can't wait to see Harris in the White House and Trump in the big house. Oh, I get what you did. Yeah. Thank you. Trevor Starr in Hollywood. And I'm so nervous. The stakes are too high to feel calm. I'm never usually this nervous outside of a final exam, says the Lady Beatrice. Thank you for that super chat. Well, the super chats and super stickers. Hey, Mark Petrie, thank you for a $5 super
Big shout
sticker. They are wide open. We are live tonight. I'll just mention this again. We have a show that you asked about, you asked for, and so we're doing it. It's an opportunity, really, because I know that we're not going to know a lot at this time, to get the community together. You can leave it up there. I'll just tell you. It's the election special. It's tonight, 8:30 to 9:30 p.m. Pacific time. So if you're on the West Coast, it's 8:30 to 9:30. If you're on the East Coast, that's 11:30 at night till 12:30 in the morning. It'll just be an hour, but through that special, we will be live with David Cay Johnston, David Katz, Nikki Maduro is going to come through, John Rothman, so Gil Gross, a lot of people with really good takes on what's happening who might at that point have little bits of information that they want to remark on as well. 60% of the time, you're right every time, says Jennifer. Yeah. Gosh, I love that drop. We had that drop somewhere. I'll find it for you before the end of the show. Yeah, it's from Anchorman, right? Yeah. William Gipe with a super sticker for $3. Thank you. Big shout out to you, William.
Big shout out.
Jim Slayton with a $10 super chat. Testing 1, 2, 3. Thank you so much, Jim.
Thank you so much.
I'm just nervous. I want it over, says Wes. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the super chat. Right on. All right, Kim's News. Anthony Davis from the Midas Touch Network joins us in the second hour. Very excited about that. I will ask you this. Please share this show. If you hear something you like, if there's a video we drop that you like, please share it. Put it on Facebook. Put it on social media, wherever you are. That helps us grow the audience, and it costs you nothing. If you are disposed to, please do support us through Patreon or PayPal. There are hot links to Patreon and PayPal underneath all our videos. And this is really the mother's milk of keeping us on the air, because we have to make payroll every month. And I'll also give a quick shout out to Coachella Valley Coffee. They are our, yes. Ah, yes. They are our partner in so many ways, and they have a new bean out, or I believe I think it's a new bean. And I'm going to have the Roastmaster General on Thursday, Cliff. And the Roastmaster General will tell you all about the new bean and maybe a deal. I think he may have an offer for the holidays, a special holiday offer. So there's that. Yeah, that's CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. But I do want to mention, if you go to CoachellaValleyCoffee.com, it is a high-end roastery. They hand roast everything. And as I've mentioned to you, it's all fresh crop. So the beans are particularly rich and great. You know, you can find beans everywhere, maybe cheaper, but they don't have the pop that Coachella Valley Coffee has, because they only use the freshest beans, not beans that have been sitting around for a few months. So bottom line is, use our discount code so you'll get 10% off, because I want you to order as much as you can and then get 10% off that. So Mark T is the discount code. Mark T all together. Mark T at checkout. That's everything. Kim's News, and then from the Midas Touch Network, Anthony Davis. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report is sponsored by Coachella-Valley-Coffee.com. The choice for the next president of the United States is now in the hands of voters. There's nothing you can do at this point, right? That's it. Every poll is open on this election day, heavy turnout being reported in just about every state. The first polls close at 6 p.m. Eastern. The contest between former President Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris, widely expected to be the closest presidential election in decades. Washington, D.C. is preparing for any possible unrest due to this election. Secret Service putting up new 8-foot-tall metal fences around several key sites, including the White House, the Treasury Department, and the Vice President's residence. Capitol Police increased staffing while D.C. officers will work 12-hour shifts today. A new poll shows most Trump voters would support a fourth run for the White House. Did you know this? If the former president doesn't win in today's election.
Right
the
on.
survey conducted for Newsweek by independent polling company Redfield and Wilton Strategies found 51% of Trump supporters think he should run in 2028 if he loses this time around.
What?
Can't we be done with it? Trump said he doesn't see himself running again should he lose. I don't think I could take another one. No.
Man,
I'm done.
Yeah, that's a How old will he be then? 83, right?
I mean, come on, really?
Yeah, I don't know.
I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, there's a lot of support for you, sir. Good for you.
Some political experts think that it may take days before a clear winner is declared in the race for the White House. Each state handles its elections differently. Closing times for polls are staggered. In 2020, most news outlets did not declare President Joe Biden the winner until 4 days after Election Day. So we'll see how tonight goes. But as you mentioned, you kind of have an inkling as to where it's going. Harris and Trump tied with 3 votes each in the tiny New Hampshire community of Dixville Notch. They opened and closed their polls just after midnight Eastern time in a decades-old tradition. You know, Dixville Notch, they have like, six voters in town. It's a very tiny little place. They don't need the polls to be open for very long, but there they go. And as goes the nation, as mentioned before, on a knife's edge, 3 votes for Harris, 3 votes for Trump. So
Dixville Notch. Usually predictive, are they? Is that the idea? I know.
They're just the first result to be released in the nation. Yeah.
Look at this. Kenny Allen says this. Hate to be that guy, but prepare yourselves for a big Trump win.
Oh, no.
I know no one wants to grasp the possibility of Kenny Allen. I don't know Kenny Allen before. I've never heard of Kenny Allen, but Kenny Allen is in our chat, and he says Trump's winning.
I feel like we need to manifest the win we want to see. So let's just say that that's not true.
Well, here's Jed Mack. Jed says Kamala will win by 1.5 million votes. Oh, Kamala will win the
more than that.
Popular vote by way more than that.
Yeah.
But as you know, in this magical place we call America, the popular vote doesn't mean anything. In fact, you know how many presidents have taken office after a vote where they've lost the popular vote?
Nope.
Anybody? The answer is 5, I believe, is the answer. Yeah. But the ones that we know about are George Bush and Donald Trump. Yeah, we lived through those. I think everybody else was prior to that, like John Quincy Adams type thing, you know.
Weather on this election day is mostly favorable for voters. Some are dealing with the elements, though. Rainfall impacting the central U.S., where showers and thunderstorms
LA community colleges boast high transfer rates.
What?
Are in the forecast from Chicago to Houston. Temperatures in Arizona and Nevada are in the 60s and 70s. That's nice voting weather. Michigan and Pennsylvania are seeing above normal temperatures. So it's just those folks having to stand out in the rain that are the problem. Some voters in Apache County, Arizona, turned away before they could even cast ballots on Election Day because of faulty machines and voting issues. They call it the worst we've ever seen, and they've had some voting issues there before. The Assistant Attorney General at the Navajo Nation Department of Justice telling CNN today that these faulty machines are printing only the propositions on their ballot, not the candidates, and they're forcing poll workers to use express voting machines. They say each polling location in the county has only one of these manual machines, and the machines are prone to freezing. So there's some big problems there in Apache County, Arizona. They're scrambling to try to fix everything.
Wow.
I've tried to do the best I can.
Wow, that sounds tricky. I don't know how, it sounds like a small county, but nonetheless, you don't want any irregularities.
It's a key county, yeah. Abortion, perhaps the biggest state issue on the ballot. Voters will be deciding 11 measures that deal with reproductive rights. 10 states, including Arizona, Colorado, and Florida, have measures that would amend constitutions, state constitutions, to establish a right to abortion. In New York, the Democratic governor led a rally over the weekend where she urged voters to say yes to Prop 1, which supporters say protects abortion rights and fights for equal rights. Nebraska has 2 proposed constitutional amendments on the ballot. One would protect abortion access, the other would ban it. If somehow both were to be approved, the one with the highest number of votes would win. In every election since Roe v. Wade fell, every pro-abortion rights position has passed. Law enforcement agencies across California are preparing for some election day unrest, no matter who wins this one. Several cities have plans in place for possible protests. In Oakland, some business owners aren't willing to even take a chance to see what happens. They're already boarding up. They did it last night based on violence that broke out in 2016. Even the police department is surrounded by barricades. San Francisco's FBI office setting up a command post to cover the whole region as well. The Department of Justice is monitoring polling places in 27 states for compliance with federal voting rights laws. The only location on the list in California is San Joaquin County. Workers in the Civil Rights Division will be watching to ensure the Registrar of Voters Office is doing exactly what it should. In the 2020 election, the DOJ monitored Los Angeles County and Orange County. Again, today, it's San Joaquin County. And more than 27 million Californians will be under a red flag warning or weather watch due to high fire danger. We've got strong winds starting in the north, moving south by tonight. Tomorrow expected to be the windiest across the state. Gusts in Los Angeles and San Bernardino counties reaching 80 miles an hour. To avoid fires, PG&E shut off power in 17 counties, or may shut off power in 17 counties by the time the polls close, while SoCal Edison considers doing the same for more than 170,000 customers. Winds, we don't take chances with those, right?
Well, we lost our house to fire, and it's a brutal thing. And it was when you're running out of the house and the wind is howling and the fire is coming, I'm telling you, we still feel it. You can even hear it in my voice, maybe. Or my tone. It's a scary, awful thing that we fear as much as anything can be feared. It's just a really sad fact, though, that we have to take these precautions in California and across many parts of the West, but certainly in California right now, this is a real big issue.
Massachusetts voters will decide today whether to decriminalize psilocybin, the mind-altering drug in mushrooms. And advocates, do you call that a drug? I guess you do.
Yeah, I think you do.
Right, yeah.
It's a drug. Right on.
Yeah.
Hook me up, Doc. Hook me up.
It wasn't made in a lab. It's naturally occurring. Does that make it okay?
Not the good stuff's not made in a lab.
Advocates point to studies showing some use of the drug can help people overcome depression and post-traumatic stress disorder. Opponents argue much more research needs to be done on that. If approved, Massachusetts would be the 3rd state to decriminalize psilocybin after Oregon and Colorado.
And it would become the most fun state right away.
The science is ridiculous.
Maybe we'll have to get some real scientists in. I mean, I wonder if Dr. Emil Schiffhausen, the 3rd, I wonder if he's available because I don't know. I've never done it, but I've always wanted to,
It's fantastic.
All right. That's what I've heard. Yeah.
Bernice King daughter of civil rights icon Martin Luther King Jr., demanding a social media account remove an ad of her father generated using artificial intelligence. In a video on X, an account which goes by MAGA Resource posted a deep fake video of King praising former President Trump. Bernice King demanded the video be deleted, calling it vile, fake, irresponsible, and not reflective of what her father would say. The account is not officially affiliated with the Trump campaign, but she wants it gone. So a lot of deep fakes.
Yeah, this deep fake thing is really scary.
Yeah, the word is that there are Russian influencers kind of trying to stick their fingers in the American election that are circulating these things.
Yeah, that's exactly right. One high-profile one was traced back to Russia. One was traced back to China as well. Mm-hmm. By the way, in breaking correction news, I have this. Rex Smith said the comment Mark said 15 million votes, not 1.5 million, just to let you guys know. It wasn't my comment, says Rex, but Rex still rides in to correct the comment. It was from Jed Mack.
That's right.
Jed Mack said Kamala will win by 15 million. I think I saw a point in there, 1.5 million, and it's not there. So, Jed, apologies to you, and I stand corrected.
I stand corrected.
Thank you. Okay.
Lastly, in Michigan, the 2024 election got a little stickier than it did in most other states. And by that, I mean the Michigan Department of State held an I Voted sticker design contest, awarding top honors to several winners. Some designs even went viral. Buyers were offering to pay more than $30 for stickers that included an image of a werewolf pulling his shirt off in front of an American flag. There was a dog with sunglasses bragging about voting. More than 480 designs were submitted. The public got to vote on their favorites, drawn by school students and Michigan residents. The 9 top designs were made available for clerks to order and to give out to voters. So there's some of the I Voted stickers in Michigan. Nice find, Tony.
Wow.
Look, there's the werewolf on the top right, or top left rather. Yeah. Pretty good.
Nice job, Tony.
Makes the boring old American flag with the I Voted seem kind of, snoozy.
You should be able to do your own I Voted or be able to use the standard issue. But I like that they're doing what they did with stamps. Postage stamps are the same thing now. You can go with traditional American flag or whatever, or you can get like a super personality-driven postage stamp.
We had a really pretty one. I don't know if it was just in San Francisco or if it wasn't the whole state of California, but it had poppies on it last year. Little poppies. Yeah, it was really very California, very cute. There was one with the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. Mine's just a flag. It says I voted. So,
Yeah, mine too, but
I'll take it.
Yeah.
This report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. And since you did the mention at the top, I guess do we not have to do it again now?
We don't have to do it again, except to say that I'm having it right now, and it is so delicious. And even if you don't hear the harp music in your head when you take a sip, you'll hear it in your head is what I mean. Even if you don't hear it you get what I'm saying. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Do use our discount code MarkT, 10% off. They have coffee, they have teas, loose leaf teas. They have bag teas. And I'm laughing because the other night, Courtney comes in and she goes, "There's no more cold brew. I need some more cold brew." She loves the cold brew coffee. So do check it out. It's not just cold coffee. It's not just coffee, you put ice on it. There's a whole instruction thing. It's really easy, but you put it in there and it steeps for like 18 hours. But it's ready to go. All you have to do is put the bag with the cold brew in this pitcher, let it steep. I think it's 18 hours. I forget exactly what it is. And then it's ready to go. And she loves it. And it's not just cold coffee. It's got special tasting notes to it. You're going to love this place, and I really want you to get the discount. So Mark T at checkout to get the 10% discount. Well done.
I'm Kim McAllister, and this is The Mark Thompson Show.
They had to close down an entire radio station to silence him. And now, he's here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Thompson. The Mark Thompson Show.
tried to do the best I can.
Put that coffee down.
Oh, girl, baby girl, don't even play.
When they raided Mar-a-Lago, God didn't like that.
Feels great, baby.
See, Obama would love to be the Antichrist.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Would you like to apologize for what you've done?
I love it when you're angry. 60% of the time, it works every time.
Oh, you got it, Tony? Is that it? Play it again. Is that it? 60% of the time.
60% of the time, it works every time.
That's an anchor, man. I love it. Very, very well done. Very, very cool. Well, I'm excited. I'm excited because it's voting day. Maybe something good happens. I mean, we're a country where sometimes good things happen. It's not a...
I've told you, it's never easy being in this business.
It's true. It's not. It's not. Nothing is super easy, but once in a while something good happens.
I'm going to end up losing weight in prison.
Yeah. Oh, that was... Oh. There is prison on the ballot. You realize that, don't you? I mean, if Trump doesn't win, he is going to prison.
It's sayonara, sucker.
Yeah, it might be, yeah.
Good day, sir.
Maybe. I'll tell you something, and I'm not, I haven't fully baked this cake in my mind, so I'm still researching this. And this is a question for David Katz, too. But it may be moot, because if Trump wins, it's a moot question, moot point. But I don't think Trump will likely go to prison. I don't care what happens. I think this country just doesn't do that to former presidents. But that puts me at odds with, like, David Cay Johnston, who thinks he really will if he doesn't win. So I don't know. I'm still researching. I'm reading a lot of different things. Some things suggest he might, some things not. But when is Trump's inauguration to the big house? Exactly. I mean, we'll see. Now, this is the Winston Churchill line, sort of. Americans will always do the right thing only after they have tried everything else. Yeah, I think the line has exhausted all the other possibilities. I forget. I think it's Winston Churchill who said that. What else do I have to get to? And I have my British boyfriend Anthony Davis joining the show from the Midas Touch Network. He'll be here probably in the next 10 minutes or so. There have been 2 threats, says God's number one, in Fulton County, Georgia polling locations. Win or lose, judge says that Donald Trump will be sentenced on November 26, 34 counts. Yes, sentenced, but not sentenced to prison. There can be, the Simpsons prediction is what is this? The Simpsons prediction is a funeral in 2024. Wow, I didn't know that. That's from Jason Parker.
Did you see the video? I think we have it. The video of Trump. I guess someone did some audio editing, and they took every single time that Kamala Harris said his name, and they played it, and he's got his hands over his ears like he's having a meltdown because she said his name. It's pretty weird. Why that would be your message to the American people, I have no idea. The day before the election. Why?
Oh, this is video that he plays at his rally?
He played it at his rally. Yeah. I have it highlighted in there, Tony, if you want to play it.
Tony, you can find it. I'll take a crack at looking at that. Sure.
It's just very strange why they would do that.
It's Donald Trump complaining about Kamala Harris saying his name is the video.
I mean, they had to take time to make this happen.
It's under Trump getting darker and darker. It's under that one.
Yeah.
And it's above Trump floats new tariffs on Mexico. I want to get to that in a second.
Yeah.
So I can't give you any more information about where it is more than I've already given it to you.
Yeah.
It's above the Mexico thing. It's below Trump getting darker and darker.
Weird.
You see it?
You would have to take time to
Tony's
do this.
got it now. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't understand the why behind this.
I haven't seen it yet, so I'll watch it with everybody here, and we can, if there's no music on it, there's no music on it, right?
Well, no, it's just her voice saying his name.
Good. I just can't take getting demonetized another day.
No, I don't think we can take that either. No.
Okay.
No, I don't know. Well,
we were demonetized the other day, just to tell people how crazy it is. Demonetized the other day because we used, I don't even know what we used, Tony, but it was something from Telemundo. Isn't that what it was? They were really, Telemundo is very tough. It's muy malo. In Telemundo, nada buena pasó. Nothing good happened.
No.
What's our story? Do you have it or not?
I've already.
Okay, here we go. This is at a Trump rally, apparently. And 3, 2, 1, and here we go.
Everything Kamala says is a lie. She has no vision, no idea. She has no solution.
He seems, stop for a second, he seems pretty played out in this.
Yeah, he's getting pretty raggedy toward the end here.
Yeah, he's really, he's staggering to the finish line. Go ahead, play from the beginning if you would again. If you, do you mind? There you go.
Everything Kamala says is a lie. She has no vision, no idea. She has no solutions for anything. In fact, all she can talk about, this was the other night, they'd ask her a question, say, Donald Trump did this, Donald Trump did that. All she can say is, Donald Trump.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight, I will speak about Donald Trump. Donald Trump, 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 Trump.
I don't understand why
what the hell did I have to do with it? That's all she talked. What are you going to do for the economy? Donald Trump? Man, is she bad?
Well, it doesn't make any sense necessarily to play it, at least the way they did it didn't make any sense. Maybe it was somebody's idea and then he didn't have the last part he was supposed to have, but I didn't get that. I will say one thing, and I said it in the first hour, and I'll just reiterate it here. This election is about Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump. What she was talking about, and I know she didn't mention his name in the last day of the election. Kim noted that she had avoided saying his name. And in the weekend rally, she avoided saying his name as well. And by the way, I don't know. I mean, I guess they beta test this stuff and research it, and there are people a lot smarter when it comes to running political campaigns than am I. But I think this election is about Donald Trump. He's a dangerous guy with dangerous ideas. He doesn't really know what's going on. His first go-round and his first 4 years were marked by chaos, a complete mishandling of COVID-19. And when he asked the question, are you better? I heard him ask this over the weekend. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? I mean, that's the typical question that someone who's fighting an incumbent asks. Are you better now than you were 4 years ago? I think if you really think about that and you really answer honestly, the question is, yeah, I am better off. I mean, are you kidding? 4 years ago, in the teeth of COVID, it was being mishandled everywhere. There were closures of all sorts. I mean, the economy was roiling with all of the chaos created by interruptions in the supply chain. I don't see how that's a good question for Trump to ask, but he did ask it. So similarly, I don't know about, Kamala saying his name over and over, but I do think this election is about Trump and about the true danger and specter of a Trump-Musk administration. You really want the frat boys who are now wealthy tech bros to run all over government and unplug the regulatory agencies that have kept the modest, tepid leashes, the modest restraints on them. You want those guys running around Washington? I don't. Crazy for Cash says, not sure if I missed this topic, but did we talk about that interview with Ted Cruz saying how America is done if Texas switches to being a blue state? I didn't see that. Is that what Ted Cruz said? I mean, I know Ted Cruz is being challenged. That race is within a point. From everything I've read, Ted Cruz will continue in the U.S. Senate. But there are definitely big changes in Texas. There's no question about it. And they have really worked to suppress the vote there. They're really trying to keep that state red. So Kamala for the win. Love the show. Mark, kudos to Kim, Tony, and Albert, says Mimi Gill. Thank you for a $10 super chat. And we really appreciate all the super chats and super stickers. And Mimi, Let's hope you're right.
Big shout out.
Kamala for the win. Trump on his first day in office. What will he do? I don't know ever if he's really going to do the things that he says he's going to do. But look, there's a real chance that he could win. And Trump thinks he can bring the tariffs idea to somehow cure every ill that affects this nation. He floats new tariffs on Mexico at his last rally in North Carolina. He told the audience he's, quote, going to immediately impose a 25% tariff on everything Mexico sends into the United States. This is like that, I'm going to build a wall and Mexico's going to pay for it. Remember that? Yeah. He congratulated the crowd on being the first I've told that to, is what he said. Trump predicted the economic tool, which in fact imposes higher costs on who? On Americans, has a 100% chance of working. What he meant was 60% of the time, it works every time. Quote, if it doesn't work, I'll make the tariff 50%. And if that doesn't work, I'll make it 75%. I'll make it 100. There's a 100% chance it will work. Of course, the tariffs plan is lunacy. The idea somehow that you can affect the flow of immigrants from Mexico with tariffs is so misguided and crazy, I don't even know where to start with that. But clearly he feels that Mexico can be his bitch once he becomes president, and that's not right. Mexico is a robust trading partner with the U.S. There are a lot of companies in the U.S., and maybe you view this as a problem, I know Trump does, that operate in Mexico. But the reality is there's a different kind of relationship now between the U.S. and Mexico than the one that may have been depicted in the 1963 Western that you saw, Mr. Former President Donald Trump. And his view of Mexico is such a crazy, uninformed, disengaged one that I don't even know where to start with this. I'll make the tariff 50%, I'll make it 75%, I'll make it 100%. You realize how the U.S. economy is going to be dragged sideways by a Trump presidency that's informed by these kinds of reflexive, impulsive decisions. And we know this because remember, we've beta tested Donald Trump. We had 4 years with him. When you look at the way he pushed back on experts, it scares you for the days ahead. And he will not be surrounded by those who are experts in his new administration. He'll be surrounded by those who are loyalists. That's what he wants. I'm waiting on Anthony Davis. I hope he'll make it by, but I'm interested in Trump's Mexican problem is personal, says Mara Roman. It may be. I think that his Mexican Mars says Mexican CNN said they were for Trump this morning. Oh, some Mexican voters said on CNN said they were from Trump this morning, and this even talked about if people want a better life, they don't need to migrate to the U.S. Then listed South American countries they could go to. Is that what Trump was saying this morning? I'm unclear on this. Kim, can you decode that, please? No. Mexican CNN said they were for Trump. CNN said that, I don't know. Anyway, I think Mexico is very instructive if you want something. I'll tell you what. If you want to look at what a country would be, a country that has great natural assets, has a great labor force, that is Mexico, has very few regulatory restraints on the wealthiest, is controlled in part, the levers of control in part by the wealthiest Mexicans, in the case of Mexico. Just like our country, the levers of control are controlled, at least influenced heavily by the wealthiest Americans. There is a growing oligarchy. I think it will really be unrestrained under Trump. If you want to see what it looks like, go to Mexico. Mexico is a magnificent culture. And you know, I've told you before, I'm a frustrated Latino. I wish I could come back as the romantic, dark Latino. I want to be that guy. But take a look at how the electric wires are set up in the cities and communities around Mexico. Take a look at that. And then take a picture of it and send it back to me and say, Mark, you were right. That's what no regulation looks like, okay? Take a look at the way buildings are built without any kind of seismic regulation. It is scary, and that is what you're looking at. Government, I get it, is a pain in the ass sometimes, but the regulatory instruments of government can be your friend. That's the reason you don't have fires everywhere as a result of the electric grid the way we set it up here. And our electric grid has got issues, but go to Mexico. It's crazy. My friend was there, the reason it's top of mind, in the last year, and sent me pictures of all of these wires. It looks like everybody's stealing electricity from everybody else. I'm not saying they are at all. I'm just saying that that's the way it looks because everything's a hornet's nest. So it's true. I want to be Ricardo Montalban, whoever said that. The new female president of Mexico, she won't stand for this. I hope you are right, no contendo. I was so happy to see a woman win the presidency of Mexico. There she is, Claudia Sheinbaum. Yeah, arriba, arriba. I hope she can. I mean, the sad thing about Mexico, as well as you know, is the cartels run so much, and it's from the bottom up. So Sheinbaum herself may have nothing to do with the cartels, but the communities and locales all across Mexico are controlled by many of the cartels. I say many, there are a handful of cartels in Mexico that control them. And as a result, you end up with very few options or very limited areas in which you can really make changes in Mexico. But you almost have to break bread with those who are associated with the cartels in order to really manage that country. But anyway, they have a woman in charge, and I hope that she's able to do something. As you know, I think putting a woman in charge is a good thing. Rico Suave, that's me, baby.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I'm all over it. I don't think Sheinbaum is going to be bullied, says Mama to Three Boys, on the question of what's going to happen in the future of Mexico. I'm sure of one thing. Crazy tariffs won't do anything but just drive up the price of American goods to consumers in this country. And this is the other thing that Trump just doesn't really, I mean, we're talking about this like these are real policies. He just vomits this stuff up and then tries to sell it. He sells policy the way he sells the sneakers and the Bibles. There's just no thought in it. Let me go out and front it. He's got an NFT. He doesn't even know what NFTs are. He's got like a Coinbase type crypto platform on which you can trade crypto. He doesn't even understand what crypto is, aside from the fact that he put it down just a few years ago. Now he's all about crypto. Just like he put down electric vehicles, now he's all about electric vehicles because of Elon Musk. His relationship with transactional legislation and policy positions is scary. You should be scared by that because all of these tech bros, Elon Musk may be leading the parade, but you've got Sachs and Chamath and all those guys in San Francisco. They are ready to just buy whatever legislation and decision-making they need, and he's ready to give it to them. So Donald Trump on policy, sorry, he's just heaving it and trying to sell it any way he can. There is no real understanding of policy when it comes to Donald Trump. So just to make a point on the tariffs and just to review, yeah, it's a tax on consumers, the tariffs. But here's what Trump really misses. Everything now has component parts from everywhere else. We are a huge global economy. And so the cars we drive, the televisions we have, all of these various consumer goods and retail goods, they have component parts from everywhere. So under a Trump administration and under these kinds of insanely high tariffs, those component parts will be more expensive. Those component parts will still be included in all of those various things I just mentioned and more, only American consumers will now have to pay more for them. The consumers have to pay more. The importer doesn't have to pay more. Actually, the importer does have to pay more. The exporter does not have to pay more, right? It's being exported from wherever, and the importer, in the case of a pure foreign import, would pay more for it and then pass that price on to Americans and American consumers. But again, if it's assembled in this country, okay, the importer is just importing the parts, right? But those parts now are more expensive. They go into whatever production, and then that's passed on to consumers. It's an insane way to think about the economy and the future. And yet, and the reason I harp on it is he's harping on it. He thinks that the great foreign policy move with Mexico and immigration and with any problem worldwide and with the nation's economy is somehow solved with tariffs. He can't even explain what a tariff is. He really can't. He knows nothing, and yet he may, by the end of this week, have won this election. It's a remarkable thing. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
Let's welcome in my British boyfriend. He joins us from the Midas Touch Network. You know, they are amazing in the work they do, and he is chief among them. Everything he says makes you swoon. He is authentically British, but desperately trying to help us Americans. Anthony Davis, everyone. Yes. Oh, my God. Anthony Davis, the day has come.
Yes.
Thank you for being here. I know Midas Touch Network has blown up. Your videos and your takes on things draw many, many views. And I, among the viewers, was very impressed by something you said at the beginning of one of your videos. And it was this. It was, we know that if Donald Trump doesn't win the election, he's going to deny the result and cry fraud. We know this. And then you asked, is that really the person you want to be president of the United States?
It seems pretty simple, doesn't it? When you kind of put it into that language, that he is undoubtedly, I mean, there's been a lot of coverage of that this morning already, that he is undoubtedly being advised by Steve Bannon and Roger Stone and Rudy Giuliani and all of the usual suspects that he needs to claim victory as soon as possible today in this election. So as soon as it looks like it's heading in his direction, and we know about the red mirage, of course, this idea of, well, it's not an idea, it's a reality. The way that they count the votes tends to be in the kind of red districts first, because that's just how it is. When you get to the metropolises, that is where the blue votes are found. And so it will undoubtedly, as it did in 2020, look like he's doing better than he is, and then he will call it for himself. Do we want somebody who is prepared to behave in that way? Which is a dictator, by the way. That is authoritarianism. That is despotism. We can dress it up however we like. Oh, he's just self-absorbed. He's just old. No, this is a very specific, targeted strategy to steal the election. And he will stop at nothing.
The course of the electorate, as you look at it, we see an animated women's vote, right? Apart from that, and by the way, it's important to note, just because you have an animated women's vote, and obviously it's animated by the rollback of Roe on some level, but it's not in any way clear that, you know, somehow some overwhelming majority of women are going to vote for Kamala Harris. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of reports and drill downs that suggest that there are chunks of women who make up a conservative movement in this country who are holding their nose and voting for Trump. But apart from the women's vote, because I still think that, you know, if they really show up, the women who should be rightfully angry about what's happening in this country, if they really show up, I think it could really propel this election in a direction that would favor Kamala Harris. Aren't there others I see other groups that might be underpolled, Anthony Davis. I'll give you one example, and that's the youth vote.
I'll give you another. The feminists, like myself. Because, you know, Roe is not just about women, right? It takes two to tango. And I firmly believe that there's going to be a whole lot of men like myself who are partners and we are parents and we've been through the pregnancy with our wives. And, we had to get a termination of a first baby because it had Patau syndrome, was tested, very traumatic, went through this whole thing. I'm being very honest about this. And, it was as traumatic for me as the partner. And I was a feminist before then, but man, what women have to go through with this stuff, it is unfathomable. And so we don't seem to get counted in the polling either. People like me who have been through the trauma of abortion, termination, planned termination, in this case for medical reasons. There's millions of us, Mark, millions of us. And again, we do not show up in the polling. And so I firmly believe that, yes, of course, abortion is going to be one of the major issues. And, because, of course, Trump, all the stuff that has kind of gone to shit since Donald Trump showed up has pretty much happened since he was president, right? And he lost the last election in 2020. And so all of this stuff is weighing on people's minds from January 6th, the youth vote you mentioned, and is quite right because younger people are born progressive. They are born into a society that recognizes the issues surrounding climate change and equality and diversity. That is just part of growing up in a modern society. They don't have that point of reference from 40, 50 years ago where your parents were a little bit racist. And I just think that the world has changed. And Donald Trump's presidency and also his campaign is aimed at people who lived in the 1970s. It's not aimed at people who live in the 2020s and beyond.
Yeah, it's like we were saying about his view of Mexico. It's just this though somehow Mexico is just a dog you can put on a leash, and the leash is tariffs. It's absurd. It's when he floated the "I'm going to build a wall and Mexico is going to pay for it." I mean, it was just this view of Mexico as this, as the hired help.
It's a simplistic view of the world. He honestly thinks that if you've got 5 people in a room and 2 of them have brown skin, that the 3 people remaining, the white people, are all going to have the same opinion about the 2 others. That's how he works. And that's not what the world is like anymore. And, their fear of this changing demographic, they call it the Great Replacement theory, this whole conspiracy theory. I mean, at the end of the day, they are just white supremacists, and they hate the fact that the world looks different to how it was when they held all the power. And if I can quote Stephen Miller, Donald Trump's closest advisor and speechwriter, at the Nazi rally the other day, America is for Americans and Americans only.
It was astounding, that rally. It really was. This is interesting. I want to ask you about this. Karen is saying the young male bros that Trump was supporting, they typically don't, that I guess means supporting Trump is what she means. They typically don't vote. They show up for the party and fun, but they don't vote. Young women do. My notion about that is that that's true, what Karen is saying. There is a huge following that Joe Rogan has. We'll just use him as that kind of frat boy, machismo crew, the bro vote.
Yeah.
Tell me your take on what percentage of that huge number actually show up.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because he has the most viewed podcast in America, right? I was going to say the world. Maybe it is the world. Who knows? Now, I can't really stomach more than 7 minutes of that show because I am the antithesis as a kind of modern, bald feminist, immigrant. I'm like, I am not his target audience. Now, I watched it for the Donald Trump episode, and I've watched it recently for the Elon Musk, done a couple of episodes, including one last night where they just lied and lied and lied. I have always been of the opinion, Mark, watching Joe Rogan, that he is on the far right. And yet, people are like, oh, but he endorsed Bernie, and he endorsed Biden, and it's like, I don't care who he endorsed. The guy is a showman, right? I care who he really is. And what I get from him, and I don't know him, so I'm just speculating, is that he is one of these chauvinists who, if he was in a room with the 5 people, 2 black ones and 3 white ones, he would think that he had commonality with his white friends. And if you threw a couple of females into the mix as well, he would definitely gravitate towards the boys. And you know, I just feel like it's just so irrelevant these days. You know, like your gender, your age, your race, these things are irrelevant. Like we should be able to coexist. I mean, you and I are friends, and yet there's 30 years between us. So
I beg your pardon.
What?
So
Who is having that conversation?
I was joking with that last sequence, by the way. I should have said 50 years. It would have then made it clearer that it was a joke rather than the truth.
You felt 30 was arguably the case.
I thought it was a safe bet, but actually I clearly made a mistake there. But the point that I want to make is that I moved to America because of its diversity and because of its integration. Because, you know, race and racism is different in England. It's a very different world. You know, there we brought the Windrush generation from the Caribbean to help us rebuild after the Second World War. We have very different communities of black people living amongst white people. We have just... Well, the Conservative Party in the UK has just elected a black female who grew up in Nigeria to lead the Conservative Party. Can you imagine anything like that happening in the United States of America? And whilst I might not agree with her political position, I am thrilled that somebody of her gender and of her race is being given a shot in a top job in our parliament.
Just because you mentioned it, I mean, the idea in this country, I think increasingly on the GOP side, is there's just tokenism on the, it's offensive. They put black faces in various shots because they want to show diversity. You have people like, is it Byron Donald and Herschel Walker? We have this video of him, on the stump, and they actually they ran Herschel Walker for Senate until the whole thing imploded. I mean, it was a real. He was clearly going to be a puppet. I mean, he had no interest in governance. You know that if you just listen to the guy, speak for 5 minutes.
But a lot of these people are, their pigmentation might be black, but they're very white on the inside. And so I think that, again, that's another reason why we need to kind of stop talking about people's skin tone as being relevant, because it's about who you are. And so when you ask me about Joe Rogan, just to complete the weave, when you ask me about Joe Rogan, I see somebody who is, to me, increasingly irrelevant in society, and yet he has this huge podcast. I mean, he has people on that I would just never give a platform to, like Jordan Peterson, people who he gives credence to. These people are nut jobs. RFK Jr. It's like, and Elon Musk now, who is not only just in the tank for Trump, but has been legally given the right to pay $1 million for a vote every time.
He's trying to buy a president. He really is.
And that's what rich white supremacists do. All they can do is fall back on their wealth and their riches. And so they pay the money.
Elon Musk actually comes from a country that had a white supremacy well in place during the time that he was raised, South Africa. The thing about, as you suggest, he may be with a message and with certainly the kind of cultism around these people, RFK Jr. and Elon Musk. By the way, just because I mentioned them, explain that to me. The cultism around RFK Jr., I've seen it as far broader than I ever thought it would catch on. I mean, people I know who are very smart are so much in the thrall of this guy that they have followed him all the way over to endorsing and voting for Donald Trump.
And Trump's now saying that he would basically give him control of all of health and human services.
He doesn't care. Trump doesn't care. He'll be on the golf course.
Yeah, he don't care. But the point that you're making is very interesting because you're, again, we categorize people, don't we? We say, oh, well, they're highly intelligent, and yet they follow RFK. And it's the same as us categorizing people based on their skin pigmentation. We got to stop doing that because, in my opinion, if you think that RFK has anything interesting to say about vaccines or COVID or anything, then you have just been radicalized through misinformation. So I don't blame you. It's so difficult now for people to recognize the difference between what is fact and what is opinion because it all looks the same. And so even intelligent people can be brainwashed. Even intelligent people, highly educated people, highly respected people, highly eloquent people can still be drawn into a cult.
Sure.
We all have vulnerabilities.
Right. It's just that in the case of, and I think that what really energized RFK Jr. for many people, and I think it's in the case of many of those who I'm speaking of, what really energized him was the anti-vax movement around COVID. Yeah. And you find that changed this election in a way. People, we may or may not see it actually come home to roost, but that popularity that RFK Jr. has that has now been pushed to Trump, that third-party popularity, a lot of it, the rallying point was COVID-19 and the vaccine.
You got to understand that, people who don't have any skills or talent like RFK Jr., just trading off the family name, they need to make a living. And so he found that, he was an environmental lawyer for a long time. But the guy finds that actually he gets traction when he does the anti-vax stuff. And so he runs with it. And a lot of people have done this. And I'm sure Joe Rogan did this at the beginning of his podcast too. His views aren't necessarily the views that he presents on the show, but he found an audience. And so in order to keep the money coming in and the sponsorships and everything, you just have to kind of go where the dollar signs are. And I feel that that's what RFK has done. He basically went so far down his own rabbit hole on the anti-vax stuff because he found an audience there. He started to deny that stuff recently, didn't he? When he was running for president, he's like, I never said that stuff. And then the news people showed him the clips of him saying it. And he was like, The guy, unfortunately, is also nuts, right? Because he's been a drug user. His brain don't work so well. So the guy is heavily compromised. I just feel sorry for all these people, but I just don't think that they should be working in the public arena because people like RFK Jr. are dangerous because if you don't believe in the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine, then your kids could get very ill. And if you don't want to, I've had 5 COVID vaccines. Now, admittedly, I had a full head of hair before I started taking those, but aside from that, I've had no side effects. And this is the point, is that when it comes to public health, you can't just kind of think, I'm going to make money out of this.
The danger of what you're alluding to, I think, is that when you're in power and public policy is now in your hands to make these pronouncements that got you there maybe on some level is one thing, but now, as you've suggested, you're dealing with taking care of real people and real lives, and you can do real damage with the kind of public policy that's associated with the health policy that a Trump administration would put in place.
And the abortion conversation is connected to that too. Because, of course, the Republicans have this huge movement where they've set up these clinics which pretend to be abortion clinics, but actually are just staffed with people who are going to talk you out of having an abortion. I mean, it is remarkable that that is allowed to happen. And abortion is healthcare. It is just healthcare. It's not. Someone wrote to me this morning and they're like, can you please stop calling it a woman's right to choose and call it a woman's healthcare? And I'm like, yeah, I think maybe that is going to be the right thing to say from this point onwards.
I mean, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, because obviously I know that we're running out of time, and I know that you've been doing the show for a good couple of hours now, and you're probably ready for a coffee. But
please continue. There is no There is no exit sign. I can even see whenever I'm speaking with you.
No exit ramp, unfortunately. Not for another 10 miles at least. But I would say that I know that there is a lot of anxiety today surrounding this election. And, when you introduced me, you were saying, Trump could be the president. Trump will not be the president. He will not be the president. And I say that because I've been working on this guy, analyzing him and analyzing it for a decade, as you have too. There is not an ounce of doubt in my mind that he isn't going to lose.
Where did you see him in the election that he actually won? Did you make these same courageous pronouncements then?
I wasn't as engaged back then. I was planning on moving to the U.S. I moved here in January 2016, a week before his inauguration.
I see. Okay. Well, yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, I, like a lot of people, thought that I was moving to Hillary Clinton's America.
Right.
And so, but I ain't going to make that mistake again. And, he won in 2016 because of three things. Say them with me. James Comey, who made that speech a week before the election.
Absolutely.
Russia and their meddling, which they are still doing again as we speak. And number three, The Apprentice. People thought they were voting for that guy off the TV show. And he was never that guy. He was an actor playing the role of a successful businessman. He was a 6-time bankrupt, just a snake oil salesman. And to me, it was a perfect storm of those three things that got him elected. You could even add that he was playing the role of an anti-establishment, I'm not a politician, that whole thing, which helped.
Well, that outsider thing he could play, it's always been a thing, right?
But he can't do that anymore.
No.
We know what dish he's serving up for dinner, and it don't taste very nice.
Well, the problem is, I think that people forget it's an odd thing. I'm so surprised he has any support whatsoever. I get there's sort of a politics of trolling. I was saying this to David Cay Johnston last hour.
Yeah.
That America, there's a part of America that really enjoys kind of owning the libs and the politics of smear, the politics of smack talk. Those people are empowered by Donald Trump, and they show up in pretty big numbers.
Well, I compare it to movies, right? Look at all the American films that are successful. They're all quite violent, There's lots of shooting and stabbing and screaming and somebody wins and they're like, yes, victorious. And if you look at British films, like the films that are made by Mike Leigh or, British directors, they're about kind of old ladies and their emotional turmoil with their next door neighbor. Oh, no, I don't think I could do that another 4 years. And so, that's the difference between the countries. And so America, there is always going to be a kind of UFC angle to America. And that is the Joe Rogan thing you're talking about. Donald Trump buys into that. But Kamala Harris is the antidote to that toxic masculinity. And I'm done with that now, I'm going to start identifying as nothing. I'm going to have no pronouns. I would like us all just to be one humane race.
Wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it be great? I mean, the divisions, it feels as though they're more pronounced and prominent than ever. But I'd love to see it go the other way. I was talking about how we've been a country that's evolved to a better place for a time. I mean, it's been a very uncomfortable evolution through the civil rights movement, et cetera. Women's suffrage, you can go all the way back. But now I feel as though we're devolving a little bit with the rise of Trumpism and the alt-right and a Christian theocracy that's taken over the Supreme Court. It's scary. But
But let's call it the fall of Trumpism. Because this is the end of the chapter. It's not a continuation. This is the season finale you're getting today. And I look forward to talking with you later tonight or tomorrow and having the opportunity to say told you so.
Oh, that'd be great. It really would be. Kim, do you have anything for Anthony Davis on the way out? And you have to unmute.
What's interesting is that you just said that this is the end of Trump. Like this is the swan song, if you will, that once this is over, we're never going to have to deal with it again. But I was reading, actually did a story earlier about a poll taken likely voters and also of Trump supporters. Most Trump supporters obviously want to see him run again, but the numbers were astronomical. And I think Mark said he would be 83, 84. He says he won't run again, but his ego might push him that way. We could see we had to go through this all over again in another 4 years.
Not a chance. Not a chance. I mean, the guy is checked out. Can you not see it? He's like blowjobbing the microphone at rallies.
Unbelievable.
That is not the behavior of somebody who sees themselves as an elder statesman. He is completely checked out. He just doesn't want to go to prison. That's the only thing he cares about.
Anthony Davis and I are in complete agreement on this.
Yeah.
And I'd say one other thing, too. There's a pure political play here, too, that's not being talked about. If Trump loses, he's a loser. He's lost 2020, he lost the midterms, and he lost this one. He's a loser. I'm telling you, you will be astounded at how quickly he has 10-foot pole marks all over him. No one's going to want to go near him. So that's the other part of this. There's the political fact that Donald Trump doesn't take the GOP to where they want to go. So I hope the predictions of Anthony Davis come to pass. However it goes down, we love talking to you. Anthony Davis on the Midas Touch Network. I know. He's so sexy. He's so articulate, and the way he speaks is so intoxicating. I can't wait till next time. Thank you, Anthony Davis. Come on.
Thank you, Mom.
What a day. Appreciate you being here, my friend, always. Thank you. Anthony Davis. Doesn't get much better than that. What a show. We crammed it all in. How about that?
The Mark Thompson Show.
What else do I need to do?
He gives me he lifts me up. He gives me some hope, that Anthony Davis.
Yeah, he does.
Me feel better about things.
Yeah,
I go into this with all kinds of anxiety. I hear Anthony Davis and I feel like, okay, I can. We got this day. This is gonna be
morning. Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah,
we're in better shape, but I don't think we're in wildly better shape.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I hope we are in wildly better shape. But it was. It's always great to see him. And you're right. We're all nervous. We're all anxious. Mm-hmm. And I would say this about Cheryl's comment. Cheryl Massarelli on the live chat says he is checked out. I agree. But all of his extreme followers aren't. I hope you are right, Anthony. The electoral votes are iffy. Yes and yes. And I do believe, and this is kind of what I've been talking about with David Cay Johnston, with Anthony Davis, and we continue with other conversations, I think, and we'll touch on this in the future, that even if he were to lose, and I'm not as sure of it as everyone else, I'm certainly hopeful, the movement that he's birthed, this is the point I was making when I was talking about the way in which bigger lies are now floated by high-profile politicians, and they have those lies out there without any repercussions. They're sometimes not even called out on them, many times. This movement that he's birthed, the extremism that he's permitted, the bigotry that he has enabled, that lives on, and that will find a receptacle, a vehicle, a vessel to move into power. So that's the future. It's not that Trump is going to run again. Believe me, as I said, if he loses this election, the GOP isn't going to want to go near him. But it's the movement and the MAGA movement that will continue. That's the way I see it. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
I've got to wrap this thing up. I don't want to, but I have to. Tony, what do I need to do? Is there anything? Are we good? Tell me we're good, Tony.
We're good.
All right.
We can
Tony's hustled
for later tonight. We'll be back on in just a few hours.
Give me a little Herschel Walker on the way out. He was really great on the stump, that Herschel Walker. Here he is. He is stumping for Trump. Go ahead.
And it is time for it to stop. And it stopped on Tuesday when we get to the polls and we vote for my friend and your friend, Donald Trump Jr. Donald Trump, Donald J. Trump.
Yeah. All right. Well.
Oh, wait. I'll roll him through.
Yeah, Loomer is removed. I flashed these on screen. It's true. He is overriding. Trump is a lot of the advice he was getting. And Mark, if Trump were to be sent to prison, would it be considered cruel and unusual punishment to the other inmates? Says Kelvin from New Zealand. Wow, New Zealand. I love New Zealand. Gosh, I hope I get to go back there. I loved it there. I've told that story once before. Audrey W. with a $50 super chat. You have to tell people that you were smart because of your uncle at MIT. Oh, that's true. I did it. My uncle at MIT, the real thing. You are not and never have been smart. Oh, wait a minute. You have to tell. Oh, this is somebody who's... I don't know. Oh, this is what... Hang on a second. This is what Trump said?
I guess so.
Oh, jeez.
Yes.
I had an uncle in MIT, too. I thought it was somebody
I also
attacking
had
me.
an
I was
uncle
getting
that
all
went to
excited.
MIT. We've all
I was
had
getting all
MIT
excited that I
uncles.
was being...
Yeah.
I love when I get attacked. I'm sorry about that. All right. Let's start again, Tony. Audrey says Trump has to tell people that he's smart because of his uncle at MIT. He is not and never has been smart. It's my opinion, just as a registered nurse that has a great black job, that he blew COVID and created the nastiest followers. Not anymore, she said. She's not going on. Audrey W., first of all, thank you for that very generous super chat.
Big shout out.
I'm sorry that I butchered it when I first started, but I got it now. David Ruiz, he just wants to line his pockets. Ain't it true? Thank you for the super chat. Fox News on a person of color in public office with a drug history. Yeah, that's not going to happen. Rogan is totally transactional. The only Nobel Prize he could win would be for steroid consumption, says Luis. Thank you all.
I'm Shadow Stevens for The Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Tonight at 8:30 Pacific, 11:30 Eastern, we'll have our group hug. Hope you'll join us live on YouTube. Till then, bye-bye.